Good morning, this is Rebecca Lee, and I'm really delighted to be speaking with Brad McBlain, brother of Brian McBlain, who I've already interviewed a couple of times. Brad is a retired 69-year-old nurse and the proud brother of Brian, who most of you already know. Brad was one of the sicker people to arrive back in 2011 in the old Yahoo Mercury groups that we're talking about, the Yahoo group.
Yeah, that's right.
I joined, I must have joined about the same time, and Andy was very active back then. So we had a lot of interesting conversations. He arrived in the group very sick from unsafe use of lipoic acid, followed years later by unsafe amalgam removal. He did the equivalent of 300 Cutler rounds, but was still left with a myriad of ongoing health issues. He has recently made some inroads, which he would like to talk to us about today. And I'm excited because there's a few people I know who just haven't been able to get better and are just miserable. So anything that can help those people, I really am interested in hearing about. Brad sent me a timeline of his health history, and he had a whole hell of a lot of things going wrong, mental and physical. Running through it, I was reminded of what Andy said in amalgam illness. This thing doesn't kill you. In fact, people with mercury can live long lives of suffering. I remember my aunt died in her 90s, and she was, she had a tremor and was really eccentric. So I always thought she had mercury poisoning. So I remember Brian talking about your childhood on an orchard and your clubhouse in the mercurial insecticide barrel, and your open box of mercury in your bedroom, which was off-gassing for years. Brad, to start off, tell me how you decided that your problems came from heavy metals, and how did you come to the conclusion that that your problems were heavy metals, and how did you come to Cutler chelation? What started things off?
Well, first of all, I'm a genius. No, I'm just kidding. It was the last thing on the table. I tried to ignore mercury as a possible culprit. I didn't want to deal with getting my fillings out. I didn't want to deal with whatever mercury entailed. I knew it was going to be it'd be a road, it'd be an offshoot, and I'd have to do this journey up with chelation. So I didn't want to do that. I tried everything else. What happened was I had a lot of, I had bipolar disorder. I had the symptoms of bipolar disorder for a long time. And after the age of 40, it got worse. And through my reading and stuff, I decided, well, what happened was I left my doctor's appointment, and I realized in 2007 that my doctor had not thought about me since the previous appointment.
Oh, he just, yeah, well.
And I said to Brian, he could have a 450 horsepower brain, and I might only have a 50 horsepower brain, but I'm working on my problems all the time, 24 hours a day. I'm working on something. So cool. And I'm going to come up with better answers than what he is in 10 minutes every 2 weeks.
Oh.
And so I told my wife, I said, I'm taking over this bipolar thing. We're going to try and fix this. And my wife is a psychiatric nurse, and we developed a game plan. I'm going to come off my medications, and I'm going to try natural approach to see what's going on. And we had a fallback plan. I gave her the medication I want to be on. I told her when to take me to the hospital. It wasn't without some thought and foreplanning.
You had a backup plan for emergencies.
Yeah. And so I started on True Hope vitamins. You ever hear of them, True Hope?
No, I never
Fantastic company. So True Hope, It's got a long story involved, but this guy's wife was bipolar, his kids are bipolar, and he's complaining or lamenting at his church one day. And one of the church members says, you know, that sounds like tail biting disorder. And that's in pigs. And so they started giving them pig supplements to these kids, and they started to get better. Now, tail biting disorder is interesting. Brian and I dealt with this on the farm. So what, you know, we got some funny stories for that too. But you had to catch these pigs,
Yeah.
and hold them. And Dad had this little container of gray paste that smelled like metal, smelled like metal filings. And he would take this paste, and the roof of a pig's mouth has got ridges on it. And he would scrape this off on the ridges of the mouth, and the pig would lick it off. And then he'd throw a pail into the pen, and they quit biting each other's tails. It's potentially fatal thing, because if they get infections, they can die. So this would fix them. Some vitamins and a distraction, and these pigs were fine. So Brian and I knew about this this treatment for pigs long before we I talked to him about True Hope as well. Anyway, I did the True Hope, and I had really good results with it until I didn't. Gradually, I started to get worse again. And
Yeah.
right or wrong, I blame the copper content in these supplements that maybe wasn't playing nice with the mercury.
Possible.
So that was started down that road. I did tried a lot of things. One of the things with alpha lipoic acid, and this was in January of 2008. I thought, this looks like a really good antioxidant. It water soluble, fat soluble. This sounds like the answer. And so I tried it, and I got sick, and I went off of it.
Right off the bat, you got sick?
Oh no, it took over a period of 10 days.
Did you feel good at first? Some people say they feel good at first when they take it.
No, I did not feel good at first. It felt like nothing. I had no results at first. I just gradually got worse.
Yeah.
And so then 2 weeks later, I said, well, I got to try it again. And in my opinion, I never recovered from that. That second trial of alpha lipoic acid, I never got my feet again.
How long did you do it?
Again, it would have been less than a 2-week period.
Oh.
But I didn't realize how much mercury I had on board.
You guys,
and I didn't know that alpha lipoic moved mercury around. That would have been helpful if anywhere in my reading about alpha lipoic acid, I had stumbled across this fact that it chelated mercury.
It's mercury. Well, nobody knows about it except, some obscure study from Russia and what Andy wrote and us.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's if someone has enough mercury on board, alpha lipoic acid taken twice a day can do a lot of damage. Right. And
yeah,
I carried the brain fog that I picked up with that, then the setback, I carried that until 3 weeks ago, in my opinion.
Whoa.
Yes, I've been fighting this brain fog and mental processing issues for a long time. So what happened was, in the end, I was on one of the bipolar sites, and a lady was talking about, I got a problem with mercury, and she was talking about this Cutler protocol.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't care what your exposure to mercury is. Mine's the worst that I know. And that got me thinking about mercury, and I said, well, I better get tested, and did the urine challenge test.
What happened?
I didn't. What's that?
What happened?
I thought I was having a stroke.
Yeah.
during the test, he gave me the DMPS by needle, by injection. There was no shutting off a valve on an IV bag. It was on board, and that was that. And I lost the ability to speak. I couldn't formulate words. Nothing was working here.
Yeah.
And it didn't last long,
It's like the
but it
autistic.
seemed like a long time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I left that room, had to wait and collect this urine. And I said to my wife, I said, I don't know what happens now, but no one gets control over this except for me. That was ridiculous. Anyway, the level came back high, and the guy, he was a naturopath. He wanted nothing to do with me.
Oh, yeah.
He basically said, yeah, why don't you go somewhere else and do your chelation?
Yeah.
Because of my reaction was, I guess it gave him a scare.
Yeah.
And anyway, I ended up, I still hadn't gotten involved with Cutler yet. I didn't have the book. I was still on my own. And I decided, well, a sauna. What I needed was a sauna and zinc. Zinc would displace this is all my own. You got to, a little bit delusional perhaps, but zinc was going to displace the mercury and the sauna was going to sweat it out. That was my working theory.
Well, it's a good one.
And I got into this sauna, and I couldn't sweat.
Right. Yeah.
All it did was bake in this sauna. I wasn't sweating, and I just sit there, and my poor old adrenals, which were already talking to me,
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, this is bullshit," and they basically shut down.
Stop.
I was having,
They said stop.
Yeah, they did. They certainly did. Well, in January of in December 2010, I had the first amalgams taken out. I had accepted by this time. I had the Cutler book on order, and I had the first amalgams taken out, and it knocked me down hard.
How many did you have?
I think I had 11 or 12, 11 teeth, I think, with amalgams at that point. I had a 12th tooth with a lot of amalgam in it, but it was pulled. So I had historically, I had one other tooth with that was more amalgam than anything else. But at any rate, I went to the dentist for the second sitting a month later. And this dentist wouldn't follow my instructions. He did give me an external air supply. He did use a rubber dam. I took vitamin C and charcoal, but he didn't. He wasn't into prying. He was into drilling, and he created a lot of vapor.
Yeah.
And when I left the second session, within 3 days, I was just a puddle on the floor. My adrenals shut down, my thyroid shut down. It was a complete mess. Now, I got the book by that time, but I was so messed up, I couldn't really read it and understand it.
Yeah, it's hard to read too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I got online with the site, but I wasn't understanding what people were telling me much until there's a guy there. Do you remember Hervink? Hirvinc. Hervink, if you're listening to this someday, hi, thank you so much for your help. The guy had the patience of a saint. 3 times he told me, well, he's the one that told me I had chronic fatigue syndrome, because I went on there and said, anybody else here, 2 days after you do something, you're wiped out?
Yeah.
He said, have you looked up chronic fatigue syndrome? And he was a great guy. Anyway, he got me, he said, you need B12. Well, I took B12, and my tongue swelled up and split. Got as sore as a tongue can get, I think, or heading that way. It was so swollen in my mouth, it was getting cut on my teeth. And I said, well, whatever's going on, I don't need B12. And it fit in with my blood work. My blood work said my B12 was high.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to jump ahead now.
Okay.
We'll be coming back to 2011, but in 2012, Hervings told me you need riboflavin. You're running out of riboflavin when you're taking the B12. And what happens is, without adequate B12, your cells aren't dividing. And when you take the B12, your cells start dividing, and it runs out of potassium. They run out of various nutrients that are needed, and you end up with some problems. Now, by the end of 2011, they discovered that I had all these polyps. And I was needing to I fix things. That's what I tried to do. I tried to fix things. And I decided, since curcumin worked for another form of polyposis, that it was my best chance. And so I started taking 8 grams of curcumin a day. And at the same time, I was going through the dump phase. And I came out of the dump phase only just to plunge back in with all these methylation issues. And at that time, January 2012, I said, enough of this. This is going nowhere fast. Let's get the mercury out as fast as we can. See if the immune system will wake up and realize I got polyps on board. And let's keep going with the curcumin as long as possible. And well, that was a disaster. I ended up on a couple of long rounds. One round was 67 days of chelation.
With lipoic acid?
Yeah, just lipoic acid on its own.
Yeah,
and
that's rough and tough.
It was rough and tough. This is one thing about being bipolar. And you got to watch out for this with bipolar people, because bipolar people only expect 50% of their life to be livable. And so they can be tough on themselves. You got to watch out for bipolar people. They have the ability to push themselves too hard because they don't expect good things from life anyway.
Andy warned me about bipolar people, like how to pick them out. Well, it's often people who find a miraculous cure, actually, and go and then get all excited. But anyway,
Andy and I had some very good conversations
about being bipolar.
Yeah, he and I had some good discussion. I don't know. I had some things going on that didn't make much sense to him, but it's just the way it was. So by this time I was on thyroid pills. Thyroid pills actually stopped the cycling. I was still depressed, but the thyroid pills overriding the thyroid stopped the cycling. My TSH was 3.6, and I couldn't get my doctor to help me with that. I said, I want my TSH below 2. And he said, no, 3.6 is fine.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe that nowadays, by the way. He's somewhere, he went to a conference or something. He's learned something, because he has all his patients below 2. At any rate, the thyroid pills were very helpful to me. And then I tried to get on to, by this time I was involved with Dr. Huey in Toronto. And I was trying to recover the adrenal glands because I was in obvious adrenal failure. I was unable to get hydrocortisone pills. And so I stopped off at the drugstore, got some ointment.
Yeah.
I called the poison control center. They said it was okay. They didn't care. So I started taking this ointment in capsules, and that was the first time I climbed the stairs without using the handrail.
Yeah,
Sue was helping me to stand up some days. Some days she was helping me stand up because I had to rock back and forth in chairs to stand up like a 90-year-old man.
Yeah.
Anyway, all these things helped. And eventually, Herving got me going on the B12 properly, and that helped. And I was able to return to work. I'd been off for a year. And what is it? Oh, Sue's handing me a note here. I must have missed something.
Okay.
Oh, she just saying that I do have a history of paradoxical paradoxical effects to medications or supplements,
Yeah.
and as well as being overreactive to certain things as well. So
I just read
it
in
has been,
I just read in Dr. Lamb's book that that's very common with people with adrenal problems.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, well,
that's
that's interesting.
yeah.
I'm here to learn.
Yeah. Well, we certainly come across that a lot with our with the mercury toxic people that, like the best supplement we've got is adrenal cortex, and some people can't tolerate it at all. It has a paradoxical reaction for them.
You
If
can't ethically do these studies on people, but on animals, if you give them mercury, low dose mercury continuously, what happens is that their cortisol levels are actually pretty good. In fact, maybe even a titch above normal. They're good cortisol levels, but you throw those rats into a tank and tell them to swim, and their cortisol levels drop through the floor. And you autopsy shows that the adrenal glands have all micro bleeds in them. Of course, micro bleeds means micro scarring. And so these adrenal glands over time get chewed up. And this is what some people with mercury poisoning will find afterwards, that they will need lifelong adrenal supports. Some of these people that go on hydrocortisone will be able to get off. Other ones will be staying on.
Well, I'm one of them.
Yeah, join the club. So anyway, I did get the colon taken out, and that presented its own list of problems. I don't have an ileocecal valve, so bacteria can go up the pipe. That means I've got SIBO all the time.
Oh no.
Bacteria in the small intestine. That changes the form and function of the intestinal wall. And you end up with food sensitivities and a pile of other crap like that. And I think it does change the communication of the gut to the brain too. And that communication link is quite important, as we're just beginning to understand.
Yes.
Yeah, my story's complex, and I'm leaving stuff out, but I don't think everyone needs to know the minutia of everything that happened to me and all the problems. Suffice to say this: I have some significant genetic issues. My genetics are worse than Brian's. And mercury.
For being able to excrete metals, you mean?
No, I mean, I've got a lot dealing with methylation pathway. So I am MTHFR, plus I've got TCN2, which is the carrier molecule for B12. And I got a bunch of other stuff related to methylation. And that I should finish that thought too. My B12 level was a high normal. And my doctor said, well, whatever's wrong with you, it's not B12. But I never started to get better until I started taking methyl B12. And my theory is that I don't have one or more of the three enzymes needed to convert cyanocobalamin to its useful form, methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin eventually. I just had cyanocobalamin floating around, and that's what was showing up in the testing. Soon as I started taking the methylcobalamin, the depression went away.
Oh, proof is in the pudding.
And stayed away till December of just this last December. So fast forward, fighting infections. I had H. pylori, I had mycoplasma, I had herpes 6. Herpes 6 is the roseola in kids. And the same as herpes zoster stays on in neurons, herpes 6 stays on. And it is enterovirus in that it will leave at least part of its DNA in our DNA strands. So it will be producing viral proteins, which drives the immune system nuts. And it is a big contributor to things like chronic fatigue syndrome. Most people with chronic fatigue syndrome have infections, if not all. And some like me had more than one. I also had a tapeworm. I had a fungus that we don't know what that was. I had various infections that I dealt with. And the antibiotics really messed me up. My poor old gut. I ended up with chronic urticaria, and I was breaking out in large patches of hives 4 times a day. But I got that under control with probiotics and a couple of other things. Vitamin E. Vitamin E was very helpful for my gut and helped me settle down a lot of food sensitivities, take them down a notch. I got, let's fast forward to last year. I had an infection. I got a cold and I was getting over it. I was happy, back out in the workshop. And then I got knocked down. A cough came in and I ended up in emergency with status asthmaticus. I couldn't breathe. I had asthma. And ended up like with 40 Ventolin puffers and like all these puffers and stuff. They finally got me going with magnesium by IV. And I take a lot of magnesium, but magnesium by IV got me going, got me breathing again. And I ended up with a diagnosis of eosinophilic asthma, which I think is crap. I mean, one of these days I'll believe a doctor on something, and that'll be the day though. So this is infections. I couldn't get the tested, so I went and paid for my own testing, and it came back again, mycoplasma and herpes 6. They were back, and I started on an antibiotic, and I took some ozone treatments to try to see if I could make any inroads. Wasn't making much progress. So the doctor, I had black tongue. You ever hear of that, black tongue?
Mm.
Basically, it's when cells don't slough from the tongue properly, but it also can be a sign of fungal infection. And I was also bleeding from the nose and stuff. So I had some signs of infection. And so he put me on, my second doctor, put me on an antifungal. Well, it helped the asthma. My asthma was 80% better.
Yeah, I'm starting to suspect some, those fungal infections have a lot to do with many, many things. Yeah.
Well, the fungal infection is bad and the treatment can be worse.
Yeah.
Because fungals are a dirty drug. And they mess around with other medications. They mess around with the liver. They mess around with cell functioning. The cure can be almost as bad as the disease. I went into full-blown chronic fatigue syndrome again in January, along with depression, first depression since 2013. I was reviewing my funeral plans with my wife. I was sick and got off the antifungal. I didn't complete the treatment. I only stayed on it 3 weeks. I was supposed to be on it for 2 months. I got off the antifungal and got looking around and came across this Methylene blue. Now we're getting in, for those who've been patient enough to listen till now.
Here we go.
Thank you. I get on a roll.
Oh, it's
Uh,
fascinating. I think it's fascinating. I think people who are really sick are going to find it fascinating, and there's a lot of them out there. So go on.
yeah.
It's about methylene
So
blue.
yeah, let's just give an introduction first.
Okay.
Uh, Mercury breaks mitochondria.
Yep.
The this is and not all these. This is terrible oxidation level, and
Yeah.
it creates sick mitochondria and a lot of problems stemming during and after mercury toxicity is uh, is related to mitochondrial functioning.
Yeah.
Now, the methylene blue. Do you remember anything about mitochondria?
You know, you're talking to someone who never took a science course in high school or college. I took physics, I think. But yeah, the mitochondria is where the energy production cycle goes on, isn't it?
That's right. And
Yeah.
so basically, we've got uh, glucolysis. Glucose gets broken down in the cytoplasm of a cell, and then you end up in I think it's in the mitochondria. You end up with the
Citric
citric
acid
acid cycle,
cycle, yeah, which produces the
Krebs,
ATP.
Krebs citric acid cycle,
Yeah, yeah.
and then that loads up derivatives of niacin and riboflavin with electrons that get taken to the electron transfer chain. Electron transfer chain is where most of the energy is produced.
Okay.
This is where cyanide, if you get cyanide poisoning, it takes out the electron transfer chain. You don't have energy and your cells can't survive. Methylene blue hot wires the mitochondria and it starts taking electrons right over to the final stage, which is complex 4, cytochrome C oxidase, I think it is. And this is where the magic happens. Now, when I took the methylene blue, I had a 50% decrease in brain fog within a couple of days. Almost so very immediate. There was no question about what caused this improvement. I
Mhm.
went from 2 hours a day up to 3-4 hours a day activity, crashing during the evening, but then okay the next day to do it again. That was where I was with the methylene blue. I went onto a Facebook site for methylene blue and somebody mentioned something about red light therapy. I looked into it and I went, holy smokes, this is interesting because there's a synergistic effect between red light therapy and methylene blue. So methylene blue is trying to hand an electron over to complex 4. Red light therapy comes in, and with a photon and energy, they think it cuts away or cleaves a nitric oxide molecule and makes complex 4 more receptive to receiving this electron. And then you end up speeding things up. And both the light therapy and methylene blue uh, increased through gene expression, increased production of cytochrome C oxidase, and you end up with healthier, happier cells. These things, these two modalities are being used for treating dementia and other CNS problems. They are shown that they preserve neurons, and it's really quite amazing. Let me show you. Let me show you here.
Let me show you. I looked it up. I Googled it and there was like yes, I saw that. My goodness.
So this, just so that we're completely open, this is not cheap. It cost me to get it to the door cost $2,200.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, it's worth every cent. So it goes on like this. It's a real fashion statement. It goes on like this, and you end up with light coming in at very specific places, including back here on the occipital lobe. There we go. There it's on. Then you end up taking this nose piece and sticking it up your nose. and then plugs into a battery pack, 20 minutes, 6 days a week. Now, the first day I used this, I didn't notice anything. The second day, well, I kind of wondered, but I get some vacillation. My condition's not completely stable. I don't have good days. I didn't have good days. I had better days and worse days. And I thought, well, it's just in keeping that. But the third day, I had a jump up in mood. I went, hello. And from there, it happened quickly. By the fourth day, I wanted to go out and do some gardening. And for a guy with chronic fatigue syndrome, to want to go and be active is a real step forward.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Now let's fast forward 3 weeks. I can work in the garden pretty well all day. I used a wheelbarrow for several hours this last week. Not completely full, 2/3 full, 3/4 full. But the important thing is, at the end of the 4 hours of using this wheelbarrow uphill over like 300 feet, at the end I had more strength in my legs at the end of that than I did on the first trip the week prior. It's absolutely amazing. I have now had my best days. I've had more than one, so it's nice that it's can be replicated. Best days since 2009 in terms of brain functioning, brain fog, energy, stamina, and recovery. Another thing I'm doing, since I seem to have knocked down, I cannot trigger PMM. I can't trigger post-exertional malaise. I can't trigger orthostatic intolerance. I think that's what it was called. I can't trigger any symptom of chronic fatigue syndrome. The brain fog is completely gone. Now, there's sometimes my thinking seems a little thicker, but I think that's true for almost everybody. I think everybody has days when they're thinking more clearly than other days. So I'm not saying that it falls outside of even the norms in that regard. But I'm just absolutely gobsmacked that this has worked as well as it has.
Okay.
This
What's that? Okay, I was wondering what that was. Yeah.
this is another. I'll turn it on here. It's done its cycle, but it's red light therapy.
Okay. Right up the wrist.
This puts red light into the vessels of my wrist to activate methylene blue to bring out its antimicrobial properties. Now, right now, my asthma is 80 to 85% better. Yesterday morning, for a while, it was around 90% better. Right now, it's probably 85% better. That is in keeping with the antibiotics and antifungal. That's what the antibiotics and antifungal were able to do for me. So my only complaint about it is I seem to have to wear it a lot. And it's not, I don't know that I mean, I'll use it long-term if I have to. I don't want to have asthma. I do have monolaurin coming. It's a derivative of lauric acid, I believe, from coconuts. It has antimicrobial properties, and lauricidin, I think, is one of the brand names. And we'll see if that's able to also improve things. But right now,
yeast situation, the fungal stuff.
yeah, that's the main thing. See if I can knock down. Seemed like the fungus was driving the asthma as well as the mycoplasma. So we'll see if I'm able to make a difference there.
Did you see my last interview with Robert Smithholt about his probiotic that he's so excited about?
Not yet.
You should watch that. Yeah, it's on my YouTube.
He's got probiotics?
It's a probiotic that they just discovered, which acts down in the anaerobic part of it's called Akkermansia.
I am going to definitely look at that
Yeah.
because I'm always looking at ways to help my poor old gut.
Yeah, he was just so, I started it to see what it would do because it's like a perennial problem keeping your poor old gut happy. Yeah, it really is. So, like staying healthy once you've been through this stuff is a full-time job, and that's people have to, especially when you started young like us and have reached have reached this age, like to stay healthy and not be, yeah, it's a full-time job. So you're always looking for things. That's true. Yeah, so it's a company called I can't remember, but you watch that you watch that video and see what he has to say about it. Yeah.
Right, I will. So have you noticed any
Pendulum,
difference?
it's called Pendulum, yeah. What'd you say?
Have you noticed any difference?
I
You said
can't.
you're taking it
I
now?
am, like I am after 10 years of chelating mercury, I've finally taken on lead. And, like I never thought I had to because Andy didn't really stress it that much. But, you know, I've been doing straight DMSA rounds and they've been knocking the crap out of me. Yeah.
What I'm using, and I don't know what Andy would have thought of this. I know he didn't have anything against N-acetyl L-cysteine. In animal studies, N-acetyl L-cysteine chelates lead and cadmium, and so I take it anyway. I've been able to take NS after I finished chelation. I was able to get back onto it, and it was one of the conversations I had with Andy was about that
Because it's
one.
high thiol. It's very high thiol. It's the ultimate.
Yeah, some people can't.
Some
I
people
can.
can't take it.
Yeah, I can take it. I can take alpha lipoic acid now. Andy told me not to take it on an irregular basis. He told me that it needed to be taken every 3 hours if you're going to take it.
Or not at all. Yeah. That's
But
me
I've
too.
never been super compliant. Um, I'd have no effect. I've gone on round with alpha lipoic acid. I've taken it twice a day. It makes no difference. I don't get any symptoms from alpha lipoic acid, no matter when I take it. I did get an exit. I got an exit testing done for mercury.
What's an
And
exit testing?
well, I had that initial challenge test. So I had another challenge test when I was done because my doctor said that he might believe some of my stuff if I was able to show uh, show that chelation made a difference. And my levels dropped from 35 down to 3.
That's your extracellular, what's, floating around in your extracellular spaces. DMPS IV or DMPS.
Yeah, yeah, it's not the way to get tested at all.
No,
Um, and
you did it. And I mean, it's often what you have to do because it's the only test that doctors will look at. So
it it served its purpose. It opened my eyes and told me I had to get busy. So I don't regret getting the
way back
testing
then.
done.
I also went through that. I did 2 of them. That fortunately I didn't have any bad reaction that I noticed, but yeah, the doctor said, well, you got mercury poisoning from this test. So they got me going.
Okay, yeah. And that's sometimes just getting that push forward is important for some of us, especially if we're procrastinating. Nobody wants to get the fillings done on their teeth. Oh, by the way, I was just at the dentist and their protocol towards mercury has completely changed since I was there.
Same
They know
dentist?
all about mercury. They know all about mercury. They got all the precautions. They got all the ventilation. They've got everything in place. They got the protective gear.
Is this the
When
same
my
guy? The same guy or is it different?
no, my guy retired.
It's
Um,
probably dead.
well, he removed my fillings that just about wiped me out. He removed them without protection.
Yeah, well, he's not dead, but he probably was resistant to it, like those people who work in those industries that didn't get sick. But you can't go breathing that stuff in every day all the time without it affecting you somehow. You can't get rid of, your body can't eliminate all that. just doesn't seem possible.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know that I have much else to add to this conversation.
Well, it was certainly a very interesting conversation. And I hope, how long have you been doing your gadgets?
So this has been a month, and
Okay.
I'm glad you just said that, because it
Yeah.
does allow me to add a couple of things.
All right.
First of all, I have no idea what happens if someone listens to this and has not removed the mercury. I have
Yeah.
no idea what happens when you start exciting molecules with photons or whatever. I'm just not sure. I think that another thing I'll say is you have to be very trusting or smart when dealing with methylene blue. There's an industrial methylene blue, and it's got heavy metals in it.
Okay.
And we are completely trusting those labels that say it's food quality, pharmaceutical grade, whatever it says. But is there any chance that someone's taking industrial methylene blue, adding it to a container and selling it as, is any chance in the world that that might happen? And
Oh,
so I chelate while taking methylene blue just as a precaution. Are you still there?
I'm here. I'm here.
You're frozen out?
Yeah, you're frozen too, but I can hear you. Well, looks like our discussions come to an end because of technology, but I think we did manage to cover everything.
Add them
Oh, you're
as you
back.
will.
Oh, you're back.
Oh,
Okay, I was going to
sure.
say bye because it looked like technology is interfering and telling us that we've said enough. But you were giving us precautions about using methylene blue because you don't trust it particularly. Where do you get it?
I get it off Amazon.
Off Amazon. Okay.
So
Okay.
we know there's no can't be any issues with that.
None
Um,
at all. Well, it's been
there are other sources for it. I'm retired, I'm on pensions, and I'm looking for the cheapest methylene blue that I can get that potentially meets my requirements.
Mhm.
Now, there's so whether or not it works, if I also don't know if it works if someone hasn't addressed their methylation issues. I think that that's a lot of people end up with methylation issues, and I think if if you're sick and you have a lot of systems involved,
Yeah.
then you should be looking at methylation and looking at sick mitochondria.
Well, I suppose people could, I often tell people because everybody reacts so differently to everything, when they have these conditions that we have. Um, I sort of go, well, I'll give it a try, and if it makes me sick, I'll stop, That's how I,
Yeah.
that's how I go usually.
Well, if you do decide to go down this road with either of these products, you're going to have to let me know how it turns out.
Yeah, well, the expensive gadget for your head, I don't think is in the but I might try the methylene blue and see what it feels like.
There are other cheaper like pads that you can get, and there's diagrams, etc., that show how you can take these pads, wrap them around your head. Now, I don't know if they have enough power to get through the skull or not. That's the issue. But there are other products. But if you could come up with the money,
Give it yeah, it's really worth it.
absolutely amazing for people with broken mitochondria.
Well, I don't know how my mitochondria are doing. Um, like right now, since I'm, dealing with gout and things that lead do to you, it sort of confuses everything.
Yes. Oh, I had that once. That's nasty.
Yeah, did you ever do the DMSA thing for lead?
Um, So when I had the gout, I had no idea about heavy metal toxicity.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
but fortunately, it never came back. I did have live blood analysis done, and the lady said to me, "Do you have gout?" And I
Oh,
said, "Well,
that's interesting, because Andy always thought it was hooey, but yeah.
I think it's what we do."
I think
She
it's,
showed me the uric acid crystals, though,
yeah,
under the microscope. The uric acid crystals, they look like shards of glass.
well,
It's
that's
no
what
wonder
it
it
feels
hurt.
in my joint right now. Yeah.
Oh, you, but look up red light therapy for anything that you have to see if there's any evidence. Because, and if you anybody out there who has money to invest, I think this red light therapy thing's going to really take off.
Well, you've done it a few months, so I'm gonna wait and see, like how it continues for you.
Well, stay in touch. Stay in
Yeah,
touch.
yeah, sure. Well, on Facebook Messenger. Let's do that. All right. It
Okay.
was really
All
fun
right.
talking to you. Let me put an end, stop this.